I found myself with a few spare minutes, so I thought I would start on the resin wheels, because I can paint all the tyres and hubs at the same time, to go with the, or at least paint it and weather it at the same time. So this is the wheel that you saw in the previous video. I put a wash on here, which hopefully you can, yeah, it's still, oh, come on, focus, you know you want to. It's still pretty glossy, but I'll remedy that with a flat coat. When that's done, then I can weather these all together at the same time, so then there's consistency between all of them. I might do that with a oil in the form of a streaking brusher, or I will go with MIG pigments. This is Gulf War sand. See, I've been looking at where the aircraft was based, and that was the Solomon Islands. And the dust there is a sort of a sandy tan. So that's what I'll be using as the base for the weathering on the tires. I'll put on a layer of I think this is it. Whatever it was, came off years ago. So I'll put down a base of that first. I'll use it, probably do it in the form of a wash. So I'll mix the pigment with either alcohol or water, or maybe even thinners, enamel thinners. And then when that's on, I will then blend it back with a moist brush. When that's dried out, I will take MIG pigment smoke on a cotton bud and just rub that over the tops, and that should give it a nice used tread look. I've used it to some pretty reasonable success on armour, and it came out quite nicely. Because the pigments will blend together, and I find it comes across, yeah, quite realistic. So anyway, what I'm going to do is separate these parts from their casting stubs, and in this case I need to separate this guy here at this line, and then we'll lap it on some sandpaper. Because the idea is that these spokes are open so that you can see through to the interior of the hub. Excuse me. I'll probably give this a coat of paint first, because otherwise it'll be really tricky to sort of like angle the airbrush to get the paint on the inside of that. So I'll paint and weather that interior first, and then on this side I'll do it separately. And for that, masking of these things, I have this. This is not cheap, but it is very good. It's essentially just a bearing race, and they've squeezed this into it, and there's a blade underneath here. So what you do is you set the distance you want. This sticker isn't really in the right place, so I have to measure it carefully. And then when you spin it around like that, cuts perfect holes right down to about 1 millimeter diameter. And it's really good, especially if you're doing like roundels and tires and road wheels for tanks and and tires for cars. It really helps. Also, when you're doing canopies, in some cases, some people like to cut a small circle and put that in corners of canopies. Let's see, have I got an example of that on this one? Yeah, you could say so. So it would be, I just stuck flat down on there and then cut around it. But you could put a little circle up there and then mask down the rest with a flexible masking tape. And get a nice edge on that way. But otherwise, these things are, as I said, they're not cheap, but they're really worth it, and they pay for themselves in aftermarket decals and canopy masks. But that's for later. First, I'm gonna see if I can separate these. So I'm using a razor saw. This is a photo etch set I got at Hobbycraft, which is, for those not in the UK, it's a hobby chain where you can go for anything from model kits. They have a modest selection to knitting and quilting, which is what my girlfriend does. Basically any sort of craft. They do have a reasonable tools section with a nice affordable range of tools, and this was part of a set of photo etch razor saws that I got there. I'm going around in sections, so that'll help prevent me going diagonally across the part, which would be bad. I have to resort to the kit parts, which, in fairness, they're pretty good. And if I compare them, if I can find them, probably still in the box. I think they are. Oh, here we are. So this is the side that we're working on right now. The detail, this is the resin one. And you almost say that there's more detail on the kit part, but what you are missing is that little subtle overhang and depth that you get by layering. That overhang and depth you get by layering this part inside this part. And the other side isn't too bad either. So there's is it a key I need to cut out? Let's see with this one. Yeah, I'll probably have to do some little bit of surgery on the wheel, on the axle itself, because of, bear with me, because of this little key here, which is missing on that. But again, it's the detail on the kit wheel is quite nice. I don't even know why I'm changing them for these. It's probably because I could, I suppose. What you're missing on this one, though, is that block pattern, which is quite nice. Kit part just has, well, nothing really. Which is a bit of a shame. It also seem a bit chunkier than the resin ones. So yeah, sometimes it's not really necessary to get resin parts. I mean, well, it's never really necessary. Sometimes you just want to add that little bit of extra detail. Certain cases, though, it's just fine as it is. Especially the more upmarket kits, such as Tamiya and So that's another good one. Meng's pretty good. Especially more modern kits as well. Molding techniques on modern kits they're getting really, really good, especially with slide molding. They can come in from the side. Don't even get me started on the Bandai Star Wars kits, where you have several different types of plastic on the same sprues. Some cases you have flexible plastic alongside regular styrene. Or when I say regular styrene, that stuff for some reason completely disintegrates when you put enamel thinners near it, which is a little bit of an annoyance if that's your preferred method of weathering. So when you're doing Bandai Star Wars kits, be very careful with thinners. So I've used enamel thinners or enamel washes on a Bandai 8080 or AT-AT, if you will, and it's certain parts just started to crumble. I found out why is because the thinners, the solvent part that was part of the thinners of the wash, had seeped in between the parts. So I pulled the parts apart, and there's just this big pool of enamel thinners underneath it, and just merrily degrading the plastic underneath it. It's a little bit annoying. But I suppose as long as you make sure that you prime the parts correctly once built, because they work to very tight tolerances, which means that if you put too much paint on it, they won't go together. They are beautifully engineered kits, but they do need a bit of patience, or a bit of planning rather. You don't necessarily need to paint them at all. They go together great. They're molded in color. Just looks a bit plasticky and toy-like if you don't. And to date, I've only finished the 8080 and a R4 droid and a C3PO. Now, C3PO is very, very nice. All that needs, once you put it together, really, is just a bit of a black pin wash in places. Again, be very, very careful, because otherwise it will disintegrate on you. I've got loads here. I mean, from where I'm sitting now, I can see an A-wing, 2 B-wings, and a Slave 1. Looking forward to that. I've got some lighting kits for the B-wings as well, that just slot into the engines. You pull them out, put the little lighting nubbin in there, by Bandai as well, because they do them for their Gundam kits. Come in all sorts of colours. I've been tempted to use them on various 3D prints, because the printers that I have, one of them runs with some really nice clear resins. So a bit of a creative build, creative model, and a print, and a light in that, and look really, really fetching, I reckon. I'm getting there with this. Resin dust gets everywhere. Ow. See? Sharp. Things I do for you people. So, there it is. That's just separated from that. Shall we start with that? Yeah. We'll gently start to lap it. Right, sorry, just doing some parent logistics here. Anyway, so to lap it, I just move it in a figure 8 on the sandpaper. By doing that, you put even pressure on all sides of it. See if you can get it to behave. and periodically check. You can already see it's getting very thin underneath there. Trick is not to go too far. Just want to make sure that that web is out of there, is gone. So light pressure, gentle figure 8 motion. See, they're already coming loose or wearing through. One more left. Oh, hang on. There we go. That was pretty easy. Nice and smooth. Bit of a ridge on that side still. But it seems pretty flat though. Let's see how that looks on one of the rims, on one of the wheels. There we go. So line it. There. And you get as I was saying earlier, you get a depth to it now. You can see into it, which is very nice. And to clean all this dust off, I'll throw all these parts into an ultrasonic cleaner that I've got here, which I generally use for cleaning my airbrush and my glasses. Mostly my airbrush. Every now and again a 3D print. The latter not so much, for very boring reasons. Mostly because the printer that I've got here at the moment has some issues with the exposure settings on the resin. It's not fantastic. What I'm going to do with this one is not use this little fella, but this guy. There's a bit more chunk to it. Be a little less. There we go. A little bit less finesse. And then we'll use a good old-fashioned hobby knife or scalpel to remove some of the excess. I have a feeling that this side will be pointing towards the ground. This little birdie told me that one. Because of this casting nub. I've got to pour the resin in somewhere. Sadly, I've got to make a sacrifice at some point, which in this case is at the bottom of the wheel. For those that haven't seen the original coming up video, these are a set of wheels by CMK for the F4U Corsair. It's very simple. Now, resin can be very intimidating. These wheels are pretty simple. There are cases where you have entire kits that are resin. In the case of the Fisher, I think it's Fisher models, AD5 or A1E conversion meant for the Trumpeter Skyraider, you basically have an entire resin kit, and all you are doing is using the trumpeter parts as donor parts. And with that, all you're actually using is the engine and wings and undercarriage. Everything else is resin. Although sadly they had a bit of bad luck with the California fires and lost a lot of their molds, or basically lost their business as far as I know. It's really, really sad. I was hoping to get one of those conversion sets at some point. I saw one at the aviation hobby shop in the Netherlands. I thought, do I pick one up? I had limited space in the suitcase, so I didn't. But should another one ever crop up, then I'll consider it. Now, I might just run the razor saw so along these edges, just to, or maybe just a scalpel, just to bring back some of the block pattern, which has been obscured by the casting nub. I suppose I can try it with this. Try it right at the bottom, so there's some leeway for me to screw up, which I will at some point. In fact, I already have. Not so much here yet, but remember those gear bay doors that were on the main gear struts? Might have accidentally put the wrong ones on each strut. See, that's what happens when you don't pay attention to the instructions. And this isn't doing too badly. Maybe I want a suggestion of detail back onto these. There we go. Right, back again. Okay, I'm just gonna, as I said, I might have accidentally put these on the wrong undercarriage strut. Can be another one of our little secrets. Yeah. It's not too bad, all things considered. And as I said, if worst comes to worst, if I do completely ruin them, thankfully I have access to a couple of 3D printers, one of which is quite high resolution, which I've got several really high resolution resin printers at my disposal at work, one of which is my own. And I've been using them to prototype. Bear with me. These are 1/48 scale M134 minigun barrels. This is what I call the classic version because it doesn't have a flash hider on it. So this would be the type that you'd find on OH6, UH1, AC47 gunchips, that sort of thing. So that's the finesse I can get with it. I'm considering selling these at some point. as soon as I can figure out the sums. Mostly because I am mildly disappointed with the ones that you can purchase. They're all cast as a solid piece because it's an affordable way to do it. Especially with mass producing. But they're just not quite what I want. And by being able to 3D print such fine detail, I can get the open barrels, so you can see through them when they're standing still. There, I'm not going to go too mad with this before I ruin it properly. So I've gotten rid of most of it. That'll do, especially for the part that's going to be sitting on the ground. You're going to see that, so it's fine. All right. So that's how the resin wheels are going to go. And next up would be the painting and weathering of them all. Yeah, this has been a little quick update, and hopefully next time we'll have some more. And after that, we can get on to the fun stuff, which is the cockpit. But yeah, let's get all the boring stuff out of the way first. Anyway, thanks for watching.